It was dawn when Bimbo gave birth to the creature. The midwife, a woman with firm hands and deep eyes, only sighed as she dried the newborn with a worn cotton cloth. "It's a girl," she said, very small but alive. But Bimbo didn't look, barely glanced at her. In the corner of the room, a flickering lamp cast elongated shadows on the clay walls. The baby cried, but not loudly. Her cry was weak, thin, as if she already knew she wasn't welcome in this world. What is that?" murmured Bimbo, wrinkling her nose. "A lizard." The midwife opened her eyes in surprise. "Forgive me, ma'am. She's skinny and too dark." "What kind of creature is this?" "This is a sign of curse, not blessing." The midwife held the baby more carefully, trying to hide the offense. "She has all her fingers, breathes well, and her heart beats. She's alive, ma'am. Alive, and she's yours." But Bimbo wasn't listening. Her furrowed brow was a sea of repulsion. This wasn't the baby she had expected. It wasn't the light-skinned princess she wanted to show to her husband, Mario, and to her mother-in-law, Mrs. Tao, a woman who already called her a hen without eggs every time the topic came up at the table. So, as soon as the midwife fell asleep, exhausted in a corner, Bimbo got up. She took the girl with cold hands. She didn't look at her face, just left. The village was still sleeping. The sound of crickets was the only witness. She walked to the Ogun River, her footprints erased by the low mist. She stood there, facing the dark water, which murmured songs of centuries. The baby writhed in the rags with the faintest cry. "You're going to destroy me, did you know?" Bimbo whispered and, without saying more, let her go. The sound of the cloth hitting the water was so light it didn't even echo. No thunder fell from the sky. No leaf moved. Only silence. And then Bimbo returned home, lay down on the bed, and closed her eyes tightly. The next morning, when Mario came running upon hearing about the birth, he found Bimbo hugging a pillow, crying. "She was born so sick," she sobbed. "Mario, so weak, she didn't survive." Mario, he froze. "What?" I tried to hold her, but she was gone," she said, burying her head in his chest. Mario stood motionless. Tears came to him like hot rain. He screamed, hit the ground, ran out, and kicked a drum that flew across the yard. The neighbors heard the lament and murmured. Bimbo just cried, with technique, because no tear was real. In the following days, the house filled with silence. The village sent baby food, leaves of comfort, prayers. And the mother-in-law, Mrs. Tao, spent the days on the porch, sitting on her little stool, repeating, "A baby that dies at birth is a sign that something is wrong with the mother. The fault is never the baby's." Bimbo pretended to listen. She said, "It's God, Mama, it's divine will." But inside, she only felt relief. She had gotten rid of the shame of that ugly and dark daughter who would ruin her reputation. But time is not foolish. 7 years passed and nothing. No other child came. No belly grew, no morning sickness. Nothing. With each visit to the healer, she returned with a new amulet. With each prayer made at the church on the hill, she returned more tense. Until one day Mario himself said, tired, "Did you lie to me? That girl, are you sure she was born weak?" "What?" She replied, indignant. "Do you think I would kill my daughter?" "I didn't say that, but you thought it. I was the one who suffered, who gave birth, who cried entire nights." He remained silent. She cried, this time for real. Not for her daughter, but for fear, because the truth was a shadow that, from time to time, whispered in her ears. The mother-in-law, crueler than ever, didn't forgive. "That woman has a dry womb," I said. "She threw away the blessing and now wants to harvest miracles." Never. In the village, the other women began to distance themselves. Mothers avoided talking about children near her. Children stopped playing when she passed by. One day, while fetching water at the well, a girl said out loud, "Look at the woman who lost her daughter. They say the river took her, or it was the other way around." Laughter murmurs humiliation. Bimbo returned home every day with drooping shoulders. At night, she lay down next to Mario, who no longer touched her, and whispered to herself, what if she had lived? But the idea was immediately swallowed by pride, by fear, by guilt. Only fate doesn't forget. A girl appeared one day in the village, carrying leaves laughing and helping the elderly with a basket of mangoes. Her eyes had a strange brightness, as if they knew too much. Her skin was dark as night, and her smile illuminated like the sun. No one knew where she had come from, but soon everyone wanted to know who she was. And Bimbo felt a chill the moment she saw her. "Who is that girl?" she asked, gasping. "We don't know," replied Mrs. Tao, scratching her chin. "But look how similar she is to someone." Bimbo swallowed hard. The girl had the same dimple on her left cheek, the same little wrinkle on her chin. And when she smiled, the world spun. "This can't be," she murmured, but it was. It was what would come after that. It would be another part of the story. Because when you throw a flower in the river believing it will sink, the river might take it to the garden that will return it stronger. And Bimbo was about to harvest the seed she planted. Not of love, but of cruelty. And harvests don't choose seasons. Bimbo no longer slept. Her nights were now of contained sobs and sweaty sheets. No matter how much she pretended strength, no matter how much she walked with her head held high through the village, her heart was a drum of guilt that wouldn't stop beating. 7 years had passed since that silent act, but the Ogun River, the river doesn't forget. So she began to return there. At first she went in secret, at night, when the village lanterns were already out and only the croaking of frogs accompanied her steps. She stood there barefoot, in front of the dark water, with eyes full of tears. "If you hear me, my daughter, forgive me." She threw flowers, sometimes banana leaves with small notes tied to them. "Mama made a mistake. Mama was blind. Come back to me." She didn't know why she did this, maybe out of madness, maybe out of hope. But the fact is she cried, truly. Not for her mother-in-law's judgments, not for the gossiping mouths of the people, but for the invisible hole that existed inside her since that cursed dawn. "Ogun, god of the river, if you took her, bring me another. Bring me a living daughter, and I swear I will love her, even if she comes skinny, even if she comes dark." It was a promise, and the universe, as always, listened. 3 months later, to everyone's amazement, Bimbo became pregnant. "Miracle," said the neighbors. "A sign," shouted the pastor. The womb opened again, sang the mother-in-law, who now even praised Bimbo's beans. Mario, the husband, was moved. He smiled again, kissed Bimbo's forehead every morning again, even planted yams in the yard with more hope again. But Bimbo felt fear. The belly grew, but along with it, so did the guilt. Until the day came, and the cycle, like a cruel clock, repeated itself. It was an afternoon of gentle rain. The sky wasn't crying, just whispering. The midwife, the same one from 7 years ago, now older, but still with firm hands, helped with the birth. The baby was born, breathed, cried. "Girl," again said the midwife, smiling. But, she stopped. The creature was different. Skinny as a stick, with a high forehead and eyes too big for her. Face, the skin, black as freshly burned charcoal. The fingers long. And that same weak cry, like a bird's whistle. Bimbo froze. "No," she whispered. "Ma'am, she's alive, healthy, but needs care. Maybe she's premature. She needs love." But Bimbo had already backed away. "No, this is a test. This is a punishment. Are you seeing this? She's your daughter. No, she's not mine. This is a mistake of nature, a failure of God." The midwife, tired, just shook her head. "You promised you would love her, remember?" But the promise turned to dust. That same night, Bimbo waited until everyone was asleep. She took the girl with cold hands once more. She walked to the river. The path seemed shorter this time, more familiar. The wind seemed to know what she was doing. Upon reaching the bank, she hesitated for a second, just one. "I asked for a daughter, not this." And she let the baby slip from her hands. Splash! The water swallowed her without sound, without whirlpool, without protest. But the sky, the sky this time shone with a distant thunder, small, but present like a warning. You haven't learned. The next morning when Mario woke up, he found Bimbo pale, sitting with sunken eyes. And then he asked, anxious, "Where is she?" The midwife said it was a girl. Bimbo bit her lip. "She didn't survive, Mario." He stopped, remained motionless for long seconds. Then he buried his hands in his face. Another one. Yes, but she was born alive. The midwife said so. Yes, but for a short time. She stopped breathing. It was very quick. Mario didn't scream, didn't cry like the first time. He just walked to the newly planted yam foot, knelt down and hit the earth hard. Why? Why does this always happen to us? Bimbo wanted to comfort him, but how? What was she going to tell him? Sorry, love. But again she seemed ugly to me and I threw her in the river. So she just cried again. But this time, the crying was already more automatic, colder. She no longer knew if it was pain or fear, or just the sound of her own ruin approaching. The days that followed were slow, heavy. Mario returned to keeping silent. The mother-in-law, this time, didn't praise any beans. This isn't normal. God doesn't give and take just because, she said, looking at Bimbo like someone looking at a snake. The village returned to murmuring, now with more certainty. 2 daughters dead in the same way, they said. This woman hides something. And she did hide. She hid so much that she no longer recognized herself in the mirror. At night, she returned to the river again. She cried, threw leaves, begged. But now, the river seemed mute, as if saying, I no longer listen to you. And Bimbo, for the first time, began to fear that what would come would not just be punishment, it would be revenge. The chickens were still sleeping when the silence of dawn was broken by a cold voice. Bimbo, wake up. She opened her eyes slowly, feeling the mattress until she found her husband Mario's arm. But it wasn't he who was speaking. It was the mother-in-law, Mrs. Tao, standing at the door, with her old lantern trembling in her hand and a look loaded with sentence. Get up and cover your head. We have a visitor. Bimbo sat up slowly, her heart beating fast. Outside, under the shadow of the mango tree, a young and robust woman waited with a sack of flour on her head and a shy smile on her lips. This isn't Kim, said the mother-in-law, without beating around the bush. The new wife. Bimbo felt the world collapsing. New what? New wife, she repeated, like someone announcing the change of a gas cylinder. 7 years. Bimbo, 7 years you've already had. 2 dead children, none alive. And you think Mario is going to die waiting for you to decide to give birth to something that lives? Mama, murmured Mario, getting up, embarrassed. We haven't talked properly with her yet. Ah, shut that weak mouth, Mario. What kind of man sees his own mother aging without grandchildren and stands with arms crossed? Bimbo looked at him, expecting a gesture, a word, a defense. But all she saw was doubt. She approached, knelt at her husband's feet, with red eyes and a naked soul. Give me 1 more year, just 1. If I don't get pregnant, you can marry as many Kims as you want, but let me try. 1 last year, for everything we've already lived. Mario looked at her. There was pain in his gaze. Yes, but also fatigue. However, he nodded slowly. Just 1 year. The mother-in-law rolled her eyes. A wasted year. But for Bimbo, it was a miracle on installments. The next night, Bimbo returned to the river for the last time, she thought. She carried a candle and an old Bible she borrowed from the neighbor in case things went wrong. She cried like never before. I threw 2 daughters in this river, she confessed out loud. I made promises I didn't keep, but please, just 1 more chance. And if she comes, I promise to love, no matter how she comes. The waters moved slowly, as if reflecting her heart. Do you think God still hears you? Asked a voice behind her. Bimbo turned around scared. A lady in simple clothes, with eyes that seemed to see beyond the natural, was standing leaning on a wooden staff. Who are you? Someone who also made mistakes, but who decided to stop making mistakes. You're reaping what you sowed, daughter. But a bad harvest can be pruned if the heart changes. I don't know how to change. Then I'll show you. She extended her hand. Bimbo took it, and there, in front of the waters that had been tomb and altar, the old woman prayed. With each word, Bimbo cried more. Not a cry of guilt, but of liberation. You killed, but God forgives murderers. He forgave Paul, he forgave David. He can also forgive you. But how? How will he forgive me? With surrender. The woman returned the next night and the next and the next. She took Bimbo to church, gave her a New Testament, taught her to pray, to fast, to meditate on the Psalms. And in the third month, before the entire village, which looked between surprise and skepticism, Bimbo went down to the waters and was baptized. The sharp tongues of the village murmured, "That woman. Now she became a saint?" But deep down they knew something had changed. Her gaze was different, her walk lighter, and her face more serene. And then, without fanfare, without loud prayers, without street prophecies, the wound grew. She didn't announce it. She waited for the kicks, waited for the nausea. And when it was impossible to hide, she revealed. Twins. The village was shocked. Look what fasting and prayer do. Huh. The mother-in-law this time didn't mock. Mario just started leaving bigger plates of food at the door. Mario smiled again. And Bimbo prayed. Lord, however they come, I will love them. The months passed, the day came. In the small and suffocating room, with the wind moving the stained curtain, the twins came into the world. First a girl, small, delicate, round face, calm eyes, healthy, cried loudly. And the father was moved. She will be called Segin, he said, moved, because she arrived like joy. Then the second arrived. Silence. The midwife hesitated. Bimbo, the other one, was also a girl, but strange, very thin. Her skin had spots, the eyes misaligned, the nose curved upward, the mouth crooked. She cried like a sick cat. Mario stepped back. What is this? She's your daughter, replied the midwife, firmly. Just different. This is a punishment. But Bimbo took her in her arms with sweetness without fear. No, she is Saad and she's mine and she's God's. No matter how she looks, she's my answered promise. Mario turned his face away. I can't look at her. Then don't look, but she won't. Be discarded. She's going to live. She's going to be loved, even if it's only by me. And so began the new chapter in Bimbo's life. On one side, Segin, celebrated, carried in arms, photographed. On the other, Saad, hidden, avoided, rejected. But Bimbo treated her with the same tenderness, the same affection, the same blessing. Mama loves you. Mama failed with others, but with you she won't fail anymore. Saad smiled, even crooked, even strange. She smiled like someone who had already forgiven before understanding. And in heaven, perhaps, a page was being turned. Because love, love, even late still redeems. Saad didn't cry like the other babies in the village. Her cry was thin, sharp, like that of a lost bird. And her laughter, when it appeared, came as a surprise, subtle and shy, as if asking permission from the world to exist. She grew up in a corner of the house, in an improvised crib with old rags and worn pillows. While neighbors came to visit Segin, bringing toys and necklaces of colored beads, only Bimbo leaned over Saad with eyes shining with tenderness. Mama is here, my little crooked flower, she said, kissing her forehead with the care of someone holding a cracked but precious glass vase. Saada's skin didn't lighten with time. It remained spotted, with irregular tones, gray spots on her chest and arms. Her hair grew in sparse and hard strands. Her eyes, one lighter than the other, gave her expression an air of mystery that frightened adults and intrigued children. What is that thing? Whispered the neighbors under the shadow of the well. It looks like she was cooked with remains of another baby. God forbid, exclaimed another. That's a punishment. Mario never contradicted them. He only looked at Saad like someone seeing a ghost in the form of a girl. The father who lifted Segin high for everyone to see never touched Saad, never carried her, never called her by name. Once, Saad tried to run to him, with arms extended like fragile branches of a young tree. Daddy, she said with a trembling and sweet voice. Mario instinctively stepped back, as if she were made of fire. Go play with your mother, Saad. Bimbo watched, torn between anger and resignation. She's your daughter. I have a daughter. She's out there, playing with the new kite. That one is not mine. Saad heard, always heard, but never complained. Instead, she found comfort where the world didn't reject her, in nature. From very early on, Saad showed a fascination for trees, wind, bird sounds, and, above all, the river. She spent hours sitting on the bank with a notebook that Bimbo had given her, made of paper scraps and a plastic cover. With charcoal, she scribbled curves, leaves, fish, and, above all, the river. The river was her refuge, her counselor, her mirror. Mama, the river whispers, she said one morning while drawing smiling fish. It calls me by my name. And what does it tell you? Ask Bimbo, sitting beside her. That it knows my story and that it loves me, even though I'm ugly. You're not ugly, my daughter. You're different, like the full moon. You have a beauty that only appears when others hide. Saad smiled. Segin, the twin brother, grew up beautiful, tall, strong, wide smile, firm voice. The village adored him. The older ladies called him Prince. The children wanted to run like him. The girls already disputed among themselves the title of Segin's future wife. But Segin was different. Mama, why do they laugh at Saad? He asked one day, seeing a group of boys mocking his sister, calling her devil's doll. Because their eyes are still blind, replied Bimbo, washing clothes. But yours, son, must see beyond the face. And he saw. Every time they mocked his sister, Segin appeared. Not with screams, but with firmness. If you mock her again, I'll tell my father that you stole guavas from the pastor's orchard, he told a bold boy. Another time, he kicked the group of bullies' ball straight into the bush. Whoever wants to laugh at my sister, go get the ball in the thicket. It's full of snakes, huh? And the boys gave up. But deep down, Segin also wondered. One night, after everyone was asleep, he approached his mother. Mama, can I ask you something without you getting sad? You can, my love. Why is Saad so different from me if we're twins? Bimbo took a deep breath. She looked at the stained zinc ceiling, as if the words were hidden there. Because sometimes God sends beauty from within and takes a little longer to bring it from outside. But when it arrives, it's more beautiful than everything. Segin accepted it. He was a child, after all. But deep down, something told him that his sister's story was deeper than they knew. Saad spoke little but thought a lot. When laughter turned against her, she smiled. When adults averted their gaze, she sustained it. When someone said, "How horrible," she replied, "Amen." She didn't throw tantrums, didn't cry in public. When she was sad, she drew. And her notebook, over time, became a diary of emotions. One day, she drew two girls, one with braids, smiling, surrounded by friends, the other with spotted skin, sitting on the bank of a river, holding a flower. Who are they? Asked Segin. Me and who I want to be. But you're already better than that. You're the best sister in the world. She hugged Segin tightly. The only hug the world didn't reject. At school, Saad learned quickly. She was intelligent, agile with photographic memory. But the nicknames, those were faster than any correct answer. E.T., Little Monster, Forest Mask. Teachers tried to contain it, but rejection grew like weeds. One day, a new teacher arrived. Mr. Bancole, thin, with huge glasses and worn shoes. He saw Saad sitting in the corner alone. Have you ever thought about painting? I don't have paint, she replied. The next day, he brought used tempera paints, worn brushes, and an easel made with wood scraps. I want to see what you see, Saad. She painted the river. And the river was beautiful, blue and golden, with tall trees and a girl sitting on the bank, with wings on her back. Who is she? It's Saad when the world stops laughing. Bancole held the painting like it was a relic. You have something special. Never hide it. Never. Bimbo, seeing all this, knew she was harvesting a miracle. The rejected daughter now filled the house with color. Despite her husband's rejection, despite the people's contempt, Bimbo didn't back down. One day, everyone will see who you are. But even if they don't see, I already see. And Saad, with a low voice, replied, I also see you, Mama, and you're the most beautiful in the world, even when you cry in secret. It was then that Bimbo understood that her daughter was light, even though the world called her shadow. Time passed like the Harmattan winds, dry, persistent, sometimes nostalgic. Saad, now almost 22 years old, had become a discreet woman with gentle gestures and attentive gaze. She still retained the unusual features of childhood, the spotted skin with indecipherable patterns, the asymmetrical eyes that sometimes shone like amber and sometimes darkened like the river itself. She was an adult, yes, but the questions inside her had only grown. Why did her father still treat her with so much silence? Ah, why did some elderly people whisper when they saw her pass? And why the river? Ah, why did the river always seem to call her as if it knew her name since before birth? One night, when the moon was full and orange like a ripe tamarind, Saad had a strange dream. She was on the riverbank, but she wasn't alone. Two girls, just like her, spotted skin, sparse hair, intense eyes, were in the water up to their waists. They smiled, but it was a sad smile. One of them extended her hand and whispered, "Come, Saad, you're part of us." Saad tried to scream, but her mouth wouldn't open. The wind whispered among the leaves, "Daughter of water, daughter of repentance." She woke up with a wet face, not from sweat, but from tears. Bimbo came running from the other room. "Saad, what's happening? Are you sick?" "I don't know, Mama. I dreamed about the river. There were two girls just like me. They called me." Bimbo's face paled. Inside, her bones froze as if the river had entered her soul. "It was just a dream, my daughter. The river keeps secrets, but you're safe here with me." But she wasn't, neither safe nor at peace. In the village, Segan was the pride of the people. He married Iridi, a kind and charming young woman. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, but moving. Saad danced, smiled, applauded. On the outside, everything seemed normal. But inside, something began to slowly corrode her heart: loneliness. The young people of the village still looked at her with fear, or disguised repulsion. Some tried to be kind, but never approached. Saad pretended not to notice. She had learned to laugh in silence, to make jokes about herself, to transform pain into drawings and poetry. But no one has appeared for that daughter of yours yet. The neighbors asked Bimbo. "She's a good girl, but you don't know those eyes." Bimbo smiled sideways, but her guilt was a deep well she pretended to have covered. She didn't know the well was still full. And each tear of Saad was one more drop that overflowed. On Sundays, mother and daughter returned together from the market. Bimbo made a point of picking up Saad, even when she said she could return alone. "Mama, I'm already an adult, you know? And I'm already old, did you know?" replied Bimbo with a playful smile, carrying the cloth basket. As they walked between the clay houses and narrow alleys, people looked at them with contained respect. Saad was known for her kindness. She knew the children's names, helped elderly women carry their buckets, treated even drunkards with kind words. But she felt like a poorly assembled puzzle, as if she was missing an essential piece of her soul. One afternoon, Bimbo found Saad sitting by the river again. As she had done since childhood, she scribbled in her old notebook, now almost completely full. "You know, Mama, sometimes I feel there's something in this river that belongs to me." Bimbo stopped. The wind swirled some dry leaves around. The sound of water seemed louder than normal, almost like a muffled scream. "What do you mean by that, daughter?" "I don't know, but when I'm here, I don't feel fear. I feel nostalgia for something I don't even remember." Bimbo sat beside her. She remained silent for a good while. Then she said, "The past is like the river. Although it seems calm on the surface, there's always current underneath. Sometimes it's better not to dive." Saad looked at her mother. "Are you hiding something from me?" "No," she replied too quickly. Saad didn't insist, but her eyes said, "I know you are." The following nights were even more restless. The dreams repeated. Sometimes the girls from the river cried. Sometimes they screamed. One night, Saad woke up screaming her own name. "Saad!" Bimbo ran to her. "Are you scared?" "No, Mama. I think she is me. We're all me." Bimbo couldn't take it anymore. The pain grew in her throat like thorns. The next morning, she went alone to the village church. She sat in the back pew and began to cry. The pastor approached. "Sister Bimbo." "Pastor, I committed a sin that has been suffocating me for more than 20 years. The pastor didn't interrupt her. I threw my daughter in the river. Not once, but twice. Because I thought they were ugly, that they would embarrass me. And God let me live even so. The pastor put his hand on her shoulder. And even so, he gave you a third chance with Saad. But she's remembering. She dreams about them, about the other two. It's as if the river wants to collect. Maybe the river doesn't collect. Maybe it just returns. Bimbo returned home in silence. She saw Saad sitting on the porch, sewing the sleeve of her torn blouse. She observed her as if seeing her for the first time. "You are beautiful," she said. Saad laughed. "Now you tell me that?" "I always believed it, but now I see with the eyes of the soul." Saad didn't understand, but felt something, an invisible weight shifting in the air. The following week, Bimbo wrote a letter. "My daughter Saad, you don't know where you come from, but you need to know. Before you, there were two, also my daughters, also your sisters. I threw them in the river because they were different, because I was blind. You are the miracle that God gave me to teach me to see. Forgive me, even though I may never have the courage to say it out loud. Mama." Saad kept the letter inside the Bible, there in the book of Proverbs. But the village wind was stubborn, and the river too. The days began to darken earlier, not because of the weather, but because of a new shadow that Saad couldn't name. It was as if the air had changed. The lightness that she and her mother cultivated on the return paths from the market had disappeared. Now, every time the sun began to set, Bimbo invented excuses. "Oh, today I can't go pick you up, daughter. I'm going to visit Aunt Laura," she said with a forced smile. "But, Mama, you already went yesterday and the day before yesterday, too. Now she's going to open a pharmacy." Saad retorted with a raised eyebrow. "Don't challenge me, Saad. You're already a young lady. You don't need a babysitter. Go alone and come straight home." Saad nodded, but something inside her no longer slept peacefully. The first time she thought it was just her mother's fatigue, or maybe a health problem that Bimbo was hiding. But no, that was different. That smelled like a secret. On a muggy afternoon, the market was buzzing with voices, cloth bags, hurried laughter, and flies dancing over fresh fish. Saad was finishing putting away the last bunches of bananas in her stall when she saw in the distance a familiar silhouette, her mother. Bimbo was there, but she wasn't waiting for her. She was with her back turned, talking to someone. A figure leaning against the corner of the tobacco stall, wrapped in a wine-colored scarf that covered part of her face. Saad squinted, tilted her head, trying to decipher the silhouette. The conversation seemed tense. The woman gestured nervously, and Bimbo seemed to try to calm the situation. Before she could approach, the woman moved away to one side of the market, disappearing among the rice sacks and herb vendors. Saad ran toward her mother. "Mama." "Ah, Saad, you're done already." "I just came to buy tobacco for your uncle," she replied too quickly, with evasive eyes as if she had ants in her heels. "Who was that woman you were talking to?" "What woman?" "The one with the scarf, leaning against the stall." "I saw her, Mama. You were talking." "Saad, please don't start. It must have been some vendor asking me for change. I didn't even see who it was. Let's go home. It's already getting dark." Bimbo grabbed the basket and walked away hurriedly, leaving no room for more questions. Saad stood still for a few seconds. The smell of dried fish seemed more sour to her. The air seemed trapped between the teeth of time. She lied and badly. In the days that followed, Saad couldn't forget that scene. Her head became a restless mill. Why was her mother hiding? Who was that woman? Why did she seem so scared? Until on a muggy Thursday, the truth began to peel. Like yam skin. Saad was crossing the beaten earth alley, returning from Mrs. Quiqualomo's candy stall, when her eyes met face to face with the same woman.